Boom. A towering figure of demonic shadow stood in the void, its terrifying demonic might sweeping across the land, darkening the skies. In the distance, atop the bronze palaces of the Great Thousand Worlds, many heavenly supremes frowned and looked in this direction, clearly disturbed by the overwhelming demonic presence. Even some of the Saint-grade experts furrowed their brows in concern. Xun'er's strength was incredibly formidable. Even among mid-Saint-grade experts, he could be considered a top-tier powerhouse. Facing such an opponent, even Moku would struggle to gain the upper hand without the power of the Moku Yin-Yang vase. Chen stood in midair, his expression turning serious as he sensed the dangerous aura emanating from the giant demonic shadow. Boom. As Chen focused, the demonic shadow formed by Xun'er let out an earth-shaking roar. The massive fist swung with black-purple fistlights, carrying an indescribable ferocity, like meteors speeding through the sky, striking toward Chen with the speed of thunder. Each punch could easily injure a beginner Saint-grade warrior, showing just how powerful its might was. Faced with Xun'er's frenzied attacks, Chen didn't dare to slack off. He let out a low shout, and from behind him, the immortal body of the Eternal Undying rose within the glazed halo. An ancient hand lifted, releasing beams of glazed light to clash against the fierce fistlights. Bang! 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 The two forces collided fiercely, causing the surrounding void to shatter continuously. Countless fragments of space shot out, creating chaos that forced nearby heavenly supremes to retreat, fearing being caught in the turmoil. Their attacks were relentless, murderous, and tint-sharp. Within just a few minutes, they had exchanged over 1,000 blows, yet no clear victor emerged. Roar! The battle was at a standstill, and Xun'er's rage only intensified. He howled in fury, his cold eyes piercing through the black-purple armor, locking onto Chen's figure. He raised his hand, and the black-purple strange eye on his palm opened fully, its light dispersing, releasing a terrifying fluctuation that sent waves of oppressive force throughout the air. Looking at the black-purple eye, Chen felt a chill run down his spine. It was evident that the eye posed a great threat, and Xun'er was clearly impatient with the stalemate, preparing to unleash a killing move to break the deadlock. Die, you brat. Xun'er howled to the heavens, and in the next moment, he raised his palm again. The black-purple eye locked onto Chen, its light gathering wildly as the surrounding space began to collapse. Evil spirit eye, God-slaying profound demon light. His harsh shout reverberated through the heavens, filled with murderous intent. The black-purple eye quivered violently, and in the next instant, a streak of black-purple profound light shot out with terrifying speed. The moment the profound light appeared, it vanished without a trace. Yet Chen's skin suddenly felt a sharp sting. He sensed a deadly danger, and his expression became grave. Despite the quiet around him, his senses could detect that countless rays of profound light were lurking in the void, ready to strike at any moment. If he showed even the slightest opening, he would be annihilated in an instant. What a terrifying killing move. Chen's face turned solemn. The Evil Spirit clan truly combined the strengths of both clans. This attack was likely as powerful as the 36 Supreme Divine techniques. The most terrifying part, however, was its formlessness and invisibility. Hidden within the void, it was almost impossible to defend against. Chen knew that if he attempted to counterattack now, even if he destroyed some of the profound light, more rays would slip through any gaps and strike him down. Against such an attack, even with his Saint-grade physique, he would not dare to take it head-on. Truly omnipresent, with no hole left unfilled. A sharp glint flashed in Chen's dark eyes. Taking a deep breath, he suddenly seated himself in midair. At the same time, his eternal undying body within the glazed halo also seated itself. Ancient scripture of immortality. As both of them sat cross-legged, Chen and his eternal undying body simultaneously began to chant, and the ancient sounds of chanting echoed across the heavens and earth. The chanting was profoundly ancient, like the voice of the world at the dawn of time. The sound waves became tangible, spreading outward from Chen in all directions. The void began to tremble, and the countless rays of profound light hiding within the space were touched by the sound waves. As the waves spread, the rays of profound light began to collapse. Beneath the mask-like armor, Xun'er's face changed drastically, his eyes filled with disbelief. It was clear that he hadn't expected Chen to be able to crack his ultimate killing move. After all, such methods were enough to make even the leaders of the 32 great clans of the extraterritorial evil clan wary, aside from a few, like the sacred Heavenly Demon Emperor and the dark Heavenly Demon Emperor. However, now, in the face of Chen, whose strength was merely at the immortal grade, he had made no progress at all. Go. Jiangya's heart was shaken, and without hesitation, he moved his mind. In an instant, countless strands of profound light surged from the void, radiating murderous intent as they shot toward Mu Chen's vital points. Mu. But the chanting sound waves spread, leaving no blind spots or gaps. No matter how sharp and vicious the attacks from the profound light were, they all turned to nothing under the influence of the sound waves. In less than a few dozen breaths, the space filled with killing intent had been entirely cleared away by the sound wave of the chant. Hiss. Hiss. The residual sound waves still enveloped Jiangya in the distance. As the waves passed, Jiangya's body shuddered slightly. Deep black lines appeared on the thick armor made of his horned, chitinous layer, as if it were being sliced and torn apart, with faint traces of blood beginning to ooze out. The mask covering his face slowly started to fall off, revealing his pale face. Mu Chen's eyes, which had been gently closed, slowly opened. His gaze was calm, like a bottomless abyss. The great thousand world really is full of hidden talents. Even an immortal-grade cultivator is this powerful. Jiangya stared at Mu Chen, his voice hoarse. Mu Chen remained calm, his voice indifferent. Take your people and leave the northern wilderness hill. The greatest enemy of the great thousand world is the extraterritorial evil clan, not others. Jiangya shook his head. You can't win against them. You're strong, he continued. So, in order to deal with you, I have no choice but to fight to the death. With those words, he stopped speaking and his eyes turned cold. His hands seemed to form an eerie seal. Then, a deep voice quietly echoed in the void. Evil spirit transformation. As his voice fell, Jiangya took a deep breath. His black-purple chitinous armor began to melt, transforming into a rolling liquid which he swallowed whole. Bang, bang, bang. From within his body came low, explosive sounds, as if two terrifying forces were crashing into each other, unleashing even more dreadful power. He's actually forcing the extraterritorial evil chi and spiritual energy to collide. Mu Chen's pupils contracted slightly. The collision of these two vastly different powers would undoubtedly result in an extremely terrifying force. However, it would also heavily damage Jiangya, possibly even kill him. Bang, bang. Jiangya's body rapidly shrank, constantly bursting, as blood mist sprayed out in waves. In just a few dozen breaths, when the explosion stopped, it was as if a monstrous creature had appeared in the sky. The creature's body was like cracked earth, riddled with fissures. Its black-purple eyes were full of madness, and bizarre patterns emerged across its body. These patterns shimmered with spiritual light but also carried the darkness of extraterritorial evil chi. A nearly destructive wave of power slowly emanated from the creature's form, causing those in the distance, Moku, Qing Yinjing, and others, to change their expressions drastically. Even they felt a sense of dread from that power. Mu Chen's expression also turned extremely serious. The overwhelming sense of threat made him feel the cold touch of death. In this state, Jiangya might even be able to barely resist someone at the late Saint grade. Seeing me in this state, today, you will surely die. The monstrous form of Jiangya, with its black-purple eyes, glared fiercely at Mu Chen and let out a low growl. Mu Chen tightly pressed his lips together and took a deep breath. Then, his expression began to calm. Since you're willing to fight to the death, then I, Mu Chen, have no reason to back down. His gaze locked onto Jiangya, his voice calm yet filled with boundless sharpness and killing intent. Perhaps your evil spirit clan has endured hardship and tragedy, and I pity that. But, if you think you can put my family and friends through the same fate, then today, I will destroy you first. When the final sound fell, Mu Chen suddenly formed a hand seal. At the same time, the eternal undying body behind him stood up, taking a step forward, gradually merging into his own body. In the distance, Qing Yinjing and several other heavenly supremes were stunned as they watched this scene. Qing Yinjing's voice shrieked, "Is that the fusion of the flesh and Dharma body?" Mu Chen, stop. That's something only a late saint grade can withstand. Mu Chen slightly closed his eyes, blocking out the surrounding sounds. A deep voice echoed in his mind. Unity of man and law. Unity of man and law. As the deep voice rang out in Mu Chen's heart, the eternal undying body had already entered his body. In the next instant, billions of glazed beams of light erupted violently from Mu Chen's body. Each beam contained terrifying power. Boom, boom. The spiritual energy around Mu Chen surged violently, bringing with it a terrifying spiritual pressure that shattered the surrounding void. The intensity of the spiritual energy caused even many of the top experts at mid-saint grade to pale slightly. Outside the great thousand demon purification array, Qin Tian, the azure-robed sword saint, and the Undying Lord also sensed it. They lowered their heads slightly, their gazes sweeping over the northern wilderness hill before resting on Mu Chen. Shock flashed in their eyes. He's actually fusing with the eternal undying body. He's so bold. And that's the eternal undying body, forged through countless years and containing the essence of immortality. Even a late Saint Grade would never dare to merge with it lightly. The three of them's expression shifted slightly, their eyes showing a trace of concern. They understood the immense power of the eternal undying body, so they also knew that such a fusion, even with Mu Chen's Saint Grade physique, would be extremely difficult to bear. Boom. Boom. Amidst their worried gazes, Mu Chen's spiritual energy continued to skyrocket, while his body began to bulge with lumps of flesh, like tumors, making him appear somewhat terrifying. Bang! The lumps of flesh exploded one after another, spewing out torrents of blood that drenched Mu Chen, turning him into a blood-soaked figure. He looked incredibly tragic. Cracks began to appear on his body's surface, as though he were a shattered porcelain vessel. It was clear that his body couldn't withstand the sudden surge of spiritual energy. Mu Chen. Qing Yinjing's face turned pale as she looked at Mu Chen's condition, her spiritual energy fluctuating wildly. Qing Yinjing, calm your mind. Do not act recklessly. Timing Ancestor barked in a low voice. At this moment, they were leading everyone to maintain the great thousand demon purification array to wipe out the heavenly evil god's life imprint. If Qing Yinjing couldn't control herself and rushed out, even the smallest crack in the formation could cause it to collapse. Qing Yinjing understood the severity of the situation. She gritted her teeth and forced herself to turn away, not daring to look at Mu Chen's tragic appearance. Bang! Bang! Mu Chen's body continued to explode. It seemed as if the spiritual energy within him would not stop until his body was completely shattered into pieces. At this moment, his heart was also in turmoil. The wild spiritual energy inside him had become so chaotic that he couldn't summon any power. All he could do was grit his teeth and struggle to control the energy, trying to activate his divine powers. Whoosh! Just as Mu Chen struggled to stabilize his inner turmoil, Jiangye saw his predicament. With a savage grin, his monstrous body shot forward. Everyone, hold him off for a while. But just as Jiangye charged forward, dozens of figures rapidly approached. The leader was Luoli, who had been keeping an eye on Mu Chen's situation. She spoke to the other heavenly supremes in a low voice. Got it. But time is running out. We must restore Mu King as soon as possible. The heavenly supremes did not hesitate. At this moment, only Mu Chen could deal with the leader of the evil spirit clan. Luoli nodded, her slender figure appearing before Mu Chen in an instant. Her jade hand grasped an ancient scroll that materialized in her palm, the Tailing Ancient Scroll, the sacred artifact of the Tailing Ancient Clan. Luoli could see that Mu Chen's spiritual energy was spiraling out of control. Luckily, the Tailing Ancient Scroll had the power to regulate spiritual energy. No matter how wild the energy, under the influence of the Tailing Ancient Scroll, it would be tamed. However, the spiritual energy brought by the eternal undying body contains the essence of immortality. Even the Tailing Ancient Scroll cannot fully suppress it, though it can help share some of the burden with Mu Chen. Luo Li's delicate face grew serious, not daring to slack off. She formed a seal with her jade-like hands, and the Tailing Ancient Scroll slowly unfurled, floating above Mu Chen's head. The ancient spiritual energy emanated from it, casting a soft glow that enveloped Mu Chen's entire body. Under the influence of this light, the wildly surging spiritual energy around Mu Chen indeed began to weaken. A cool, refreshing aura permeated his body, gradually alleviating the intense shock caused by the overwhelming spiritual energy. At this moment, Mu Chen seized the opportunity. With a thought, he began to transform his spiritual energy. One chi transforms three purities. A flash of spiritual light appeared, and two black and white clones of Mu Chen emerged beside him. They each extended a hand and placed it on his shoulder. Immediately, it felt as if a bridge had been formed, and the wild spiritual energy within Mu Chen's body, on the verge of exploding, began to flow steadily into the bodies of the two clones. Since these two clones originated from Mu Chen, they could absorb the spiritual energy containing the essence of immortality. Otherwise, even a late-stage Saint-grade expert would not dare to absorb such energy into their body. Boom. Boom. With the two clones helping to share the burden, the violent energy inside Mu Chen started to subside. Although his body still felt excruciating pain from the swelling, it was no longer in danger of exploding. The glazed light began to flow over Mu Chen's body, and under its illumination, his flesh transformed into an ancient, glass-like color. Even his hair turned transparent. In just a few breaths, Chen had become a glazed figure, standing still in mid-air, radiating an indescribable aura of pressure, like an ancient Buddha. His body emanated an ancient charm, as if it had endured the passage of countless ages, still unscathed and eternal. In the distance, Qing Yinjing, Imoku, Timing Ancestor, and many other heavenly supremes were all stunned, staring at this scene. None of them had expected that Chen would truly succeed. So that's how it is, one of them muttered. He used one chi transforms 3 purities to share the power of the eternal undying body. Although it can only last for a short time, he really did it. Now, he might even be able to stand up to a late-stage Saint-grade expert. They exchanged glances, unable to hold back their admiration. No wonder Chen dared to do this. He had obviously planned it in advance, and that spiritual insight was truly astonishing. In the sky, Chen slowly opened his previously shut eyes. His dark pupils had transformed into a glazed color, filled with a profound depth, as if they were deeper than the starry sky itself. He slightly tilted his head and looked at the black and white Chen clones beside him. At this moment, the 2 avatars had also turned into ancient, glazed colors. However, they remained perfectly still. The energy inside them was too wild. Any movement could trigger an explosion. Still, Chen's eyes gleamed with a strange light as he stared at the 2 avatars. In the brief moment earlier, he had faintly sensed a mysterious insight. That insight was the 3rd realm of one chi transforms 3 purities, the legendary 3 divine realms. Even the Heavenly Emperor had never reached this level. Chen himself had not been able to reach it, but when he infused the power of the eternal undying body into the 2 avatars, the 3 of them seemed to have touched upon some profound mystery. Chen pondered for a moment, then suppressed this insight. He looked up, his glazed pupils fixed on the distant scene. There, Jiangye, facing the obstruction of several heavenly supremes, was like a tiger among sheep. With a simple gesture, he sent everyone flying, vomiting blood, and retreating in defeat. However, just as Jiangye was about to unleash a massacre, his body suddenly stiffened. The sensation was like being locked onto by a primordial beast, and it made him realize that any movement would lead to a devastating counterattack. His black-purple eyes slowly lifted, and when he saw Chen, who now radiated a dazzling glazed light, his pupils contracted slightly, and a sense of indescribable danger surged in his heart. Chen, in his current state, made him feel an overwhelming sense of fear. Chen stared at Jiangye, a faint smile appearing on his face. The next moment, his body vanished without a trace. Jiangye shuddered. Without hesitation, he shot backward, and a torrent of black-purple spiritual energy surged around him, forming multiple layers of defenses, enveloping him entirely. Swish! Chen's figure appeared above Jiangye like a ghost, his gaze indifferent as he looked at the countless layers of defenses. He clenched his fist tightly, then struck down with a single punch. Boom! As the punch landed, the glass-like light crazily condensed, and the entire sky seemed to collapse at that moment. Spiritual energy from the heavens and earth surged toward Chen's fist as the point of origin. The punch fell, like a massive sun slowly descending. Boom, boom, boom. The punch's light descended, instantly shattering the countless defensive barriers. Jiangye let out a sharp, agonizing scream as he summoned all his strength. Countless evil patterns appeared on his arm, a terrifying sight. Dong! The sun-like, glassy punch collided heavily with the demonic arm. Across the land, countless eyes turned to the scene, including those of Qin Tian, the sacred heavenly demon emperor, and others outside the northern wilderness hill, all of them focused on the clash. Boom! A tremendous sound rang out as the heavens and earth split apart. Then, everyone saw the glass-like sun descending, the black-purple demonic light collapsing, and Jiangye's entire demonic arm exploding into pieces. Ah! A miserable scream echoed as Jiangye's body shot downward, piercing through towering mountains and causing them to collapse. Finally, his body was embedded in a massive mountain, blood gushing out. Half of his body was completely shattered. Countless people gasped in shock, especially Emohi Tian, whose face was filled with horror. Clearly, he was struck by the terrifying power of Chen's punch. If he hadn't relied on the power of the Emohi Yang bottle, he might have been instantly killed. This guy. Emohi Tian looked at the glassy figure in the sky, his mouth twitching slightly. He sighed helplessly, knowing that facing the ever-growing strength of Chen, the undying body was probably no longer connected to their Emohi ancient clan. Because this guy was approaching a legend. And that legend was the once greatest expert of the Great Thousand World, the Immortal Emperor. In the sky, Chen, his body as transparent as glass, stood in midair, his gaze cold as he looked at Jiangye, embedded in the mountain wall. Jiangye's right arm was completely shattered, and he appeared utterly miserable. However, Jiangye's vitality was clearly incredibly strong. Despite the severe injuries, he was not killed, only letting out constant painful growls from his throat. The many heavenly supremes from the northern wilderness hill, upon witnessing this, all breathed a collective sigh of relief. There was now a look of awe in their gazes as they turned to Chen. The power of Chen's previous punch had already approached the level of late Saint grade. Looking at everyone present, aside from Qin Tian, the azure-robed sword saint, and the Undying Lord, even the clan leaders and elders of the 5 ancient clans would likely need to rely on their clan's holy artifacts to resist. At that moment, in another battle circle, the heavenly supremes who had surrounded the evil spirit clan's experts were starting to take control of the situation, forcing the evil spirit clan's forces into a corner, preventing them from approaching the northern wilderness hill. Qin Tian, the azure-robed sword saint, and the Undying Lord relaxed their expressions as they saw the situation being contained. Truly useless, the sacred heavenly demon emperor muttered with a darkened expression. I told you, these vile races are unreliable, the Black Corpse heavenly demon emperor said coldly. It seems after this battle, we'll turn the evil spirit clan into corpses for our clan of corpse demons. The sacred heavenly demon emperor's eyes were cold, a cruel gleam flickering. I originally thought they could complete the task and make the evil spirit clan into a true extraterritorial evil race, but it seems they are not worthy of such a fate. Since that's the case, we can only let them make the final contribution to the rise of the extraterritorial evil races. With his words, a cruel smile suddenly spread across the sacred heavenly demon emperor's face. He quickly formed a hand seal. At the moment the seal was formed, a pitch-black demonic symbol appeared at the center of Jiangye's forehead, squirming as if it were directly stabbing into his mind. Intense pain spread throughout Jiangye's head, causing blood vessels to rupture in his eyes, and his whole body trembled. But at that moment, fear appeared on his face, clearly realizing something. Jiangye, bring your people and make the final contribution. I will remember your efforts. If this battle succeeds, I will promise you that the evil spirit clan will no longer be considered a lowly race. The indifferent voice of the sacred heavenly demon emperor echoed in Jiangye's mind. A flicker of struggle crossed Jiangye's eyes, but he ultimately closed them in despair. He knew that once the sacred heavenly demon emperor had branded him with the demon seal, he had lost all rights to resist. But what else could he do? Faced with the power of the extraterritorial evil clan, a mere evil spirit clan could be wiped out with a single gesture. For the sake of his people, he had no choice but to submit. Lord Sacred Demon, I hope you will fulfill your promise, Jiangye replied in a low voice. Of course. With that indifferent response, the demon seal on Jiangye's forehead began to squirm, like countless demonic worms crawling into his eyes. In just a few moments, his pupils turned pitch black, devoid of any intelligence. At the same time, nearby, the evil spirit clan's powerful members froze in place, as a strange demon seal appeared on their foreheads. Jiangye's body slowly detached from the mountain wall and floated into the air, his eyes void of any awareness. Chen watched this scene, his brows furrowing with unease. He gathered a vast amount of spiritual light in his palm, preparing to destroy Jiangye completely. However, just as Chen was about to act, a sound of wind slicing through the air came from behind him. He glanced around and was astonished to see the evil spirit clan experts quickly approaching, ultimately surrounding Jiangye and connecting their hands, forming a sphere. In the center of the sphere was Jiangye. Everyone, attack together and destroy them. Chen's pupils contracted, and he immediately ordered the arriving heavenly supreme experts with a sharp voice. Without hesitation, he struck first. His fist unleashed a brilliant, glass-like sun punch, rushing toward the evil spirit clan members. Just as Chen's attack was about to arrive, the evil spirit clan experts' bodies suddenly surged with demonic runes that embedded into their flesh, causing their bodies to expand wildly, like balloons being inflated. At the same time, a terrifying energy surged from their bodies, making everyone's scalp tingle. They're going to self-destruct. The approaching heavenly supreme experts were horrified. These evil spirit clan members were all as strong as heavenly supremes, and some, like Jiangye, were even at the mid-saint grade. Now, if they self-destruct together, the power would be terrifying. Even those at the late saint grade would have to retreat. Chen's pupils contracted further. He hadn't expected these evil spirit clan experts to be so desperate. Boom. Before he could think any further, a wave of terrifying demonic light erupted from the evil spirit clan experts, and Xun'er's body, along with the others, exploded in an instant. A massive black mushroom cloud surged upward, reaching tens of thousands of feet, engulfing the heavens and earth. The shockwave raged outward, even sending Chen and the others flying, tumbling through the air. Whoosh! As the mushroom cloud rose, a torrent of demonic light descended directly from the sky, crashing into the earth below. The powerful flood of energy spread rapidly, flattening mountains and creating a vast, empty plain. This is bad. Chen's heart jolted as he saw the magical flood tearing a large hole in the spirit net that covered the land. The demonic light surged wildly, interfering with the spirit net's attempts to repair itself. Boom! Boom! The entire northern wilderness hill trembled violently, and from deep beneath the earth, a roar of pure evil erupted. Boundless black demonic energy began to gather like smoke, emerging from the ruptured spirit net. Quick! Hurry and activate the formation's power. The heavenly evil god is trying to escape. Mohition, Timing Ancestor, and others shouted urgently. Countless powerful spiritual energies erupted, continuously fueling the grand formation. A model demon refining ancient spear reformed in the sky, and with a whoosh, it shot toward the broken spirit net, piercing the air with deadly precision. Roar! From the depths of the earth came a sharp, demonic screech. A column of demonic smoke shot skyward, twisting and coalescing into a massive skull that collided head-on with the demon refining ancient spear descending from above. Boom! A deafening explosion rocked the heavens and earth. The giant skull was torn apart, but the demon refining ancient spear also became much more translucent. Though it still plunged deep into the ground, its impact had clearly been greatly diminished. What is that? Chen's expression grew grim as he stared at the scene. Suddenly, his eyes sharpened. At the crack in the earth, torrents of blood surged forth, pouring endlessly into the depths below. The blood reeked of overwhelming demonic aura. It's the essence blood of the extraterritorial evil clan. Damn it! These evil spirit clan members are carrying massive amounts of extraterritorial evil clan essence blood. Mohition and the others also noticed the situation, their faces darkening as they roared in anger. They're trying to use the essence blood to sacrifice to the heavenly evil god and restore some of his strength. Chen's face darkened. He shot downward like a bolt of lightning, his mouth opening as the purple flame surged out, transforming into a sea of fire that raged across the fissure, burning the streams of blood. As Chen acted, deep within the dark rift, an eye filled with the ultimate evil coldly locked onto him from afar. The stench on you, worm, disgusts me. Get lost. A shrill, demonic voice echoed from the depths of the earth. Immediately after, a terrifying demonic aura surged out, piercing through the void and slamming directly into Chen. Boom. It was as if Chen had been struck by a hammer. His body was flung backward violently, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. His face was filled with shock. He hadn't expected that. Even in his current state, he couldn't withstand even a single burst of demonic energy. Whoosh, whoosh. A cold, demonic wind swept through, swiftly extinguishing the purple flame and carrying the torrents of essence blood deep into the ground, where an enormous, dark maw seemed to devour every drop. As the heavenly evil god consumed the blood, the northern wilderness hill trembled even more violently, as if on the verge of shattering. Increase your spiritual energy. We must not let the heavenly evil god break free. Mohition and the others shouted furiously, cold sweat pouring down their faces. But just as their roars faded, a colossal pillar of demonic energy burst forth from the shattered spirit net. Demonic aura rampaged wildly, and an indescribable demonic pressure swept across the land. Boom, boom, boom. On the plaza, several bronze coffins were shattered instantly by the blast. Heavenly Supremes sitting atop them were caught by the surge of demonic energy. Before they could even scream, their essence blood was drained dry, their bodies crumbling into ash. Ha 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 ha. Amidst the stunned terror of countless Heavenly Supremes, the demonic energy within the pillar gathered, and a massive, towering demonic figure began to take shape in the void. Even as a mere shadow, its presence plunged the world into instant darkness. An oppressive might beyond description blanketed the heavens and the earth, making the figure resemble a true demon god of apocalypse. The demonic howls echoed through heaven and earth. The demonic figure looked at the vast great thousand demon purification array and laughed thunderously, a sound that resounded far beyond the northern wilderness hill, spreading across numerous surrounding continents. Immortal Emperor, 49,000 years, and still you failed. In the end, it is I who triumphs in this contest. The vast, overwhelming demonic screech rolled across the skies like a world-devouring storm sweeping through, changing the winds and clouds, eclipsing the sun and moon. Within the northern wilderness hill, all the heavenly supremes looked up in horror, their eyes filled with fear as they gazed at the demonic god towering between heaven and earth. From that figure, they felt an indescribable terror. Even Mo Tian, Qing Yinjing, and the others, despite their formidable strength, appeared pale, fear flickering in their eyes. After all, the heavenly evil god's notorious reputation was deeply ingrained. Back in the ancient era, it was under his command that the extraterritorial evil clan had driven the Great Thousand Worlds into retreat after retreat. If not for the eventual rise of the immortal emperor, who fought to the death to seal him away, the entire Great Thousand Worlds might have been trampled under his feet. The immortal emperor of that era had sacrificed his life to finally seal the heavenly evil god. Yet no one had expected that 49,000 years later, this evil god would break free at the last moment and reappear in the world. Just 3 more demon-refining ancient spears, and it would have been done. The timing ancestor trembled as he spoke, his voice filled with deep regret. If only the last 3 spears had fallen into place, the life imprint of the heavenly evil god would have been completely erased. But now, at the final moment, everything had come undone. Could it be that the heavens have abandoned the Great Thousand World? The faces of many heavenly supremes turned ashen as they let out mournful cries. Outside the northern wilderness hill, Qin Tian, the azure-robed sword saint, and the undying lord also sensed the terrifying demonic aura. Their expressions, too, grew dark and filled with dread. 49,000 years. 49,000 years of effort by my Tombkeeper clan, all gone in an instant. The undying lord's body trembled, and he howled toward the heavens. He couldn't accept it. Just a few more hours, and once those 99 demon-refining ancient spears had all fallen into place, the greatest threat to the Great Thousand World would have been completely wiped out. But now, with the heavenly evil god returning to the world, what could they possibly use to stop this god of destruction? Qin Tian and the azure-robed sword saint's eyes were clouded with helplessness. They had exhausted all their strength, yet no one had expected that the extraterritorial evil clan had prepared so many backup plans for this day. However, Qin Tian was not an ordinary person. He immediately suppressed his emotions, and his low, thunderous voice echoed across the northern wilderness hill. Everyone, listen up. Activate the Great Thousand Demon Purification Array and destroy this demon. He's just freed himself. Now is the weakest moment. The heavenly supremes, who had been momentarily stunned by the appearance of the heavenly evil god, suddenly snapped to attention at his command. They exchanged looks, gritted their teeth, and unleashed all their spiritual energy toward the bronze coffins. From countless ancient texts, they knew just how terrifying the heavenly evil god was. No matter what, they could not let him leave unharmed. If he recovered, the Great Thousand World would face an inevitable catastrophe. Boom. Boom. As the Great Thousand Demon Purification Array began to operate, countless ancient lights intertwined in the sky. They gradually solidified into ancient runes that slowly spun, emanating an incomprehensible and mysterious power. Amidst the demonic smoke that swept through the heavens and earth, the massive demonic shadow raised its head. Its eyes seemed to hold all the evil in the world as it stared at the Great Thousand Demon Purification Array above, letting out a piercing screech. Hee, the immortal emperor has long since fallen. You think you can seal me again with his world-spanning formation? You're dreaming. With a sinister howl, the demonic shadow suddenly soared into the sky. Demonic energy surged around it, unleashing terrifying power. Even heavenly supremes would be instantly wiped out if they were caught in it. Stop him. Mo Tian and the others roared in fury. Buzz! Buzz! In the sky, the ancient runes were activated and shot out like arrows, piercing through space to appear around the demonic shadow that was trying to move past the northern wilderness hill. Get lost. The demonic shadow sneered as it saw the ancient runes approach. It unleashed a torrent of demonic energy, powerful enough to erase even heavenly supremes, and aimed it directly at the incoming runes. Buzz! Buzz! Each ancient rune erupted in dazzling light, forming a spherical shield of energy that enveloped the heavenly evil god's demonic shadow. Hiss! Hiss! The demonic energy collided with the shield, making a sizzling sound, like snow meeting lava, quickly dissipating. Mo Tian, Qing Yinjing, and the others saw the power of the demon purification runes and immediately felt a surge of hope. It seemed the Great Thousand Demon Purification Array was still effective against the heavenly evil god. But the massive demonic shadow's eyes gleamed coldly, and a chilling voice rang out. Even if I'm at my weakest, you think a few demon purification runes can trap me? World annihilation demonic light. A thunderous roar echoed across the heavens and earth. The demonic shadow opened its enormous mouth, releasing a massive beam of demonic light that shot out like a torrent. The light was barely 100 feet long, but as it appeared, it tore apart the very fabric of space, causing spiritual energy to flee as if it had encountered something terrifying. The 100-foot beam of demonic light surged toward the light shield above, crashing into it. The impact released an indescribable shockwave, shattering the space and even causing time itself to slow under the influence of the demonic light. Ancient runes continuously radiated spiritual light, reinforcing the protective shield and struggling to maintain its stability. Yet the destructive power within that demonic light was utterly terrifying. After clashing for mere seconds, the shield began to dim, and fine cracks started to appear on the surface of the runes. Even if the immortal emperor were reborn today, he wouldn't be able to stop me. The heavenly evil god let out a long roar, his demonic might overwhelming. The demonic light flared, and in a flash, it blasted through the colossal shield with a thunderous boom. The demonic light surged ahead, followed closely by the colossal shadow of the heavenly evil god, soaring into the sky and hurtling straight toward the area beyond Northern Wilderness Hill. Outside Northern Wilderness Hill, a light membrane formed by the Great Thousand Demon Purification Array stretched outward. This was the final line of defense. At this moment, Chen, the azure-robed sword saint, and the undying lord all stood grim-faced, staring at the enormous demonic shadow shooting toward them. If it broke through this barrier, then the heavenly evil god would truly re-emerge into the world. We must stop him. If he escapes the seal, no one will be able to contain him, the three said with grim determination. Haha. Now that my god has returned to the world, how could I let you interfere? Just stand aside and watch quietly. Just as the three prepared to strike, mocking laughter echoed from the void. The sacred heavenly demon emperor emerged, ice cold, and with a single wave of his hand, led several clan leaders of the great clans in a direct assault. Instantly, a surge of demonic aura roared forth, engulfing Chen and his companions. Left with no choice, the trio halted their advance and braced themselves to face the oncoming onslaught. Boom. Boom. At the same time, the shadow of the heavenly evil god had already reached the barrier of the demon purification light membrane. The demonic light was the first to strike, crashing against the membrane and stirring up violent ripples. Though it didn't shatter the barrier, its force was being gradually consumed. If my full strength had returned, I could shatter it with a single strike. For now, I'll just have to burn some of my demon essence. The heavenly evil god spoke calmly, his gaze fixed on the final layer of defense ahead. As his words fell, black smoke began to stream from the massive shadow of his body. The tendrils of smoke coalesced in front of him, forming into a black crystal roughly the size of a fist. Though unassuming in appearance, the moment it took shape, a horrifying wave of destruction radiated from it. After forming the crystal, the towering demonic shadow shrank to nearly half its original size, clearly a tremendous expenditure of power. Go. With a flick of his finger, the black crystal, infused with destructive force, floated slowly toward the light membrane. The moment it made contact, there was no loud explosion. Instead, a series of pitch-black ripples emanated from the crystal, ripples that seemed imbued with an incomprehensible evil. Wherever the ripples spread, the light membrane, which hadn't budged despite all previous attacks by the sacred heavenly demon emperor and the others, began to tremble violently. The tremors intensified. The membrane started to thin. The black crystal was rapidly consumed, shrinking in size. When it had dwindled to the size of a grain of rice, the light membrane finally dissolved completely, leaving only a yawning void in its place. Staring at that hollowed-out space, the faces of everyone within Northern Wilderness Hill turned deathly pale. The heavenly evil god gazed upon the void. Though his expression remained indifferent, a faint ripple stirred in his eyes. Then he turned toward Northern Wilderness Hill and said in a quiet voice, "Immortal Emperor, 49,000 years ago, you sacrificed your life to seal me away. But this time, who in the great thousand worlds can save it? I said long ago, this world belongs to me." As the last word fell, he moved without pause. Demonic aura surged through the newly formed gap, spilling forth in a relentless tide. Without the suppression of the Great Thousand Demon Purification Array, the aura spread like a wildfire. At that moment, nearly every living being in the Great Thousand Worlds felt a chill of fear and dread rise from deep within their souls. The evil god had returned.